The kingdom of my divine will in the midst of creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 35, Part 14. March 6, 1938. Oppressions and melancholies have no reason to exist in the divine will. They form the clouds, the bitter little drops, which embitter God and the creature. Prodigies of abandonment in the divine volition. How all created things remain animated by one who lives in the Fiat. The sea of the divine volition never ceases to plunge me into its waves, as though wanting nothing to enter into me other than its light, so as to grow in me, by way of light and heat, the life of its will alone. But in spite of all this, I felt oppressed, with an air of melancholy, because of the circumstances, alas, too painful, of my poor existence down here, which formed as though clouds around me, to prevent me from enjoying the beauty of the light and the gentleness of the warmth in which the soul remains fecundated, reborn, and growing inside her very Creator. And my sweet Jesus, who jealously watches over my poor soul, all goodness, told me, "My daughter, courage! Oppressions, melancholies, the thought of the past, have no reason to exist for one who lives in my will. These are notes that clash with our notes of joy, of peace, and of love, and form feeble sounds which sound unpleasant to our divine ears. They are like bitter little drops, which, thrown into our sea, would want to embitter our divine sea, while by living in our will, we make the creature the owner of our seas of joy, of happiness, and if necessary, we arm her with our power, so that everything may be propitious to her, and nothing may do harm to her, because there is no power against our will. On the contrary, our will has the power to level and to crush anything, like dust, under the empire of a mighty wind. Therefore, when we see the creature in our will being afflicted, oppressed, how bad it sounds to us. And since she lives in our volition, because of the one will that animates us, we are forced to feel her afflictions and oppressions. To set ourselves aside when the creature is afflicted is not of our divine being, nor of our love. Rather, we make use of our power, and we inundate her more with our love, so that we may see her again with a smile on her lips, and with joy in her heart. Besides, the thought of the past is truly absurd. It is like wanting to claim the divine rights. You must know that anything beautiful and good that the creature has done is deposited inside of us, attesting to us her love and the glory that she gives us, and forming her crown for her to be crowned on her first entrance into our celestial fatherland. Therefore, the most beautiful act of the creature is to throw herself into our arms, abandon herself, letting us make whatever we want to make of her, in time as well as in eternity. Only then do we take all the delight in making her one of the most beautiful statues that must adorn our celestial Jerusalem. Then he added, "My daughter, when the creature abandons herself in our will, our satisfaction is so great that she pours herself into us, and we pour ourselves into her, and we give her new life of ours, new love, new sanctity, and new knowledges of our Supreme Being. When the creature abandons herself in our divine volition, we can make in her the greatest prodigies, the most surprising graces, because there is our own will in her, receiving and depositing what we want to give to the creature. By abandoning herself in our will, she storms heaven, and her empire is such that she imposes herself over our divine being, and closing it within her littleness, while she, triumphant, encloses herself inside our divine womb. The heavens are stupefied. The angels and the saints remain ecstatic, and all feel a new life flowing in them by virtue of the act of abandonment that the creature has done while still a pilgrim. And we, finding her abandoned in our Fiat, we find that we can do whatever we want in her. She lends herself completely to our power. So we begin the work, and form in her soul many little fountains of love, of goodness, of sanctity, of mercy, and so forth, in such a way that when our love wants to love, with our omnipotent breath, we move the little fountains of love, and she loves us, making so much love overflow from the font as to flood the entire celestial court. When we want to use goodness, mercy, grace, we set these fountains in motion, and the earth is flooded by our goodness and mercy. And some are converted, some receive graces. We could do all this directly by ourselves, but we experience greater delight. We feel more pleasure in using the fountains which we ourselves have formed in the creature. Through her, we feel more moved to use mercy toward all. We have our intermediary between heaven and earth, who, with her abandonment, makes us pour graces, and makes us love all creatures with new love. Therefore, the more you are abandoned in our will, the more magnanimous we will be toward you and toward all, and everyone, at least the more disposed, will find new strength, new light, new guidance. I remained surprised, and he added, "My good daughter, how I wish that all knew what it means to live in my divine volition. It is such as to seem incredible. But do you know why? Because they don't know what my will is, and the whole series of prodigies that it can do, and wants to do in the creature. So, not knowing it, they believe it is impossible that my will can do in the creature all that I am saying. Oh, if they knew it! What it does and says is little. It is the knowledge that puts us on the way to the creature, and prepares our place, forming the space in which to place our unheard of prodigies. It is knowledge that forms the eyes, to be able to look and appreciate our divine wonders. Everything is prodigy for one who lives in our will. You must know that as a creature does her acts in my will, all created things remain animated by the will and word of that creature. All things possess a voice, and some say love, some glory, some adoration, some others thanks, and others still blessing to our Creator. What harmony do they form in the atmosphere! What a sweet enchantment! Such that we feel enraptured. But whose voices are those? The voices of one who lives in our will. It happens as when voices and chants are ingeniously enclosed inside instruments of wood and of metal. The instruments sing and speak. It is the same for the one who lives in my will. Her love to see me loved and glorified is such that she encloses her will, her voice, and her love inside the created things. And some narrate to me the story of my love. Some sing of my glory. It seems that all things have something to tell me. And oh, how happy I feel, because I see that the creature masters the entire creation, and queen as she is, animates everything, and makes me loved by everything. Oh, how sweetly it resounds to our divine hearing! I have given everything to her, and she gives me everything, and I return to give her all over again. Fiat. March 12th, 1938. How God loves and prays Himself to give the kingdom of the divine will. The life of one who lives in it is formed in God. How she is constantly reborn, sowing of divine lives. How she is welcomed and loved by all. I feel I am in the arms of the divine volition, which, dominating me, is all attentive, even over my little trifles, to invest them with its life and with its light, in order to enclose the all inside the little trifle. What goodness! What love! It seems that in any way it wants to interact with the creature. But to do what? To always give. By giving, it pours itself out. By giving, it feels operative, making from itself so many beautiful things that love it and praise it for who He is. Then, my dear Jesus, who always takes great delight in saying ever new things about His adorable will, visiting my poor soul as if He felt the need to entrust to me His secrets, told me, "My blessed daughter, the living of the creature in our will is our amusement, our enjoyment, our perennial occupation. Now you must know that, As the creature unites to our volition and enters into it, so does our will kiss the human will, and the human will kisses our own. And we, ourselves, love, pray, and ask of ourselves that our will come to reign in the human generations. The creature disappears inside our divine sea like a little drop of water, and what remains is our prayer, which wants to invest everything with its power and obtain what we have asked of ourselves. It is our own prayer. We can't do without answering it. Then, once we have prayed, we set ourselves on the way. We go throughout all nations and through each heart to see if we find even a small disposition that they want to live in our will. So, we take that little disposition in our creative hands. We purify it. We sanctify it. We embellish it. And we place inside of it the first act of our will. And we wait to be able to place the second, the third act of life of our fiat, and so forth. Therefore, all that the creature does in our will is truly us doing it. We love. We pray. It can be said that we commit ourselves in order to give what we want, and it is impossible not to grant it to ourselves. Do you see, then, what it means to live in our will? It is to impose oneself over us, making us do what she wants, and making us give what she wants us to give. After this, my beloved Jesus added, "My daughter, for one who lives in our will, her life is formed inside our divine being. She is conceived, born, and reborn continuously. Just as our divine being is always in act of generating, so is she always in act of being born anew. And as she is reborn, so is she born again to new love, to new sanctity, to new beauty. And while she is reborn, she grows and takes always from us. These new births are her greatest fortune, and ours as well, because we feel that the creature not only lives in us, but is born anew and grows in our very life. She is renewed in our own act, which is ever new, and as she is reborn, we delight in looking at her, because she acquires a new beauty, more beautiful, more attractive than the one before. But does she perhaps remain there? Ah, no. Yet more beauties will invest her. They will never cease, but so many as to captivate our gaze, in such a way that we will not be able to move it, so as to enjoy in her our interminable beauties. And we love our beauties with which we keep investing her incessantly. And while we look at her under the reign of our varied beauties, our love does not remain behind. It makes her be born again every instant in our love, which is always new. Therefore, she loves us with ever new love, which always grows and never stops. Who can tell you what this life of creature is, formed inside of us? It is our paradise that we form in her. By being reborn in us, she gives us always new joys, new surprises of happiness. Because as she is reborn, so is she born again in our power, wisdom, goodness, and sanctity. Hence, recognizing our own life in her, we love her as we love ourselves. Now, as she is reborn in us so many times, we give her virtue to be able to receive our sowing. That is, we can sow in her as many of our divine lives as we want. And here comes our will out into the field. And with its fiat, it speaks and it creates. It speaks and it sows divine lives. And by its breath, it makes them grow. With its love, it nourishes them. With its light, it gives them the tints of all its diverse beauties. More so since, this life having been reborn in us so many times, and raised within us, we have infused in her all the prerogatives necessary to be able to receive the sowing of our divine lives. These lives are the most precious. They possess the creative virtue. They have our same value. We can say, we ourselves, having formed so many lives of ours, have sowed them inside the creature. Comparing these lives to the sun, its light remains like a shadow before them. The expanse of the heavens is small compared to them. But do you want to know the use of these lives of ours, formed in the creature with so much love? They will serve to populate the earth and to generate the life of our will in the human family. They are our lives, my daughter. Our life never dies. It is eternal, with us. Therefore, they are all in waiting to take possession of the creatures, in order to form with them one single life. And this is also the cause, our great divine reason, for which we have been speaking for so long about our divine will. Each word we say is a life of ours that we issue. It is a birth that we deliver to daylight. Each word we speak about our fiat is a life of ours that we expose, which puts itself in communication with the creatures. Each knowledge that we manifest carries our kiss, which, breathing upon her, forms our life. And since life has motion, warmth, heartbeat, and breath, by necessity, the creature must also feel this life of ours within her, which will have the virtue of transforming into itself the life of this fortunate creature. Therefore, our dear daughter, be attentive. Let not even one word on our fiat escape you, because these are lives, and lives that we live in other creatures. The value of one single word on our fiat is so great that the whole of creation, oh, how behind it remains. In fact, the creation is our work, but one word on our fiat is life, and life always costs more than all the works. Furthermore, our love for this creature, who receives the sowing of our divine lives, is so great that as we speak to her about our will, so does our eternal love unload itself upon her. It pours itself out. It feels loved back. The weight of human ingratitude, of not being loved, is emptied because we find one who loves us with our love, which has the virtue of making up for all the love that all creatures should give us, of burning up all their evils, and of filling and shortening the greatest distances. This is why our love finds in her our refreshments, our paybacks, and therefore we love her infinitely. But we are not content with loving her ourselves alone. We make her loved by the celestial queen as more than tender daughter, by the angels and the saints as their inseparable sister. We make her loved by the heavens, by the sun, by the wind, by everyone. They feel in her the strength, the virtue of our love, and they feel fortunate to love her, because she is the bearer of joys to all. And our love, the contentment we feel, are so great that we call her our consoler, our Fiat that we keep on earth, our depository. Everything in her is ours. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 35, Part 14. Fiat.